Want to talk about a new movie? Check. Want to talk about an older movie similar or related to that new movie?
Check.
That's what you can expect from Quality Check Podcast.
It's a new podcast on the Studio DNA network, hosted by yours truly, Drew Douglas and
Daniel Posey. Every other Tuesday, we'll talk about a new movie and an old movie to see how the film's quality holds up.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 18 of Disney Plus Reviews. I'm one of your co-hosts, Phil Souza, and I'm here with my co-host, my good friend, and a weasel, dork, buttface, and scuzz bucket. It's Jack Altermat.
You're not going to make it to your 8th birthday. Now walk home through the woods, crossing a train tracks. What? Flight of the Navigator. I did not understand this movie very well. I'd seen it a long time ago when I was probably a kid. And now I'm just like, what did I just watch?
We're talking about 1986's Flight of the Navigator this week on Disney Plus Reviews. This is a Disney movie. It is on Disney Plus. You can watch this movie now, today.
Yes.
Right after you listen to this, or maybe watch it first and then come back
Maybe
and
watch
listen
it,
to this.
hit mute on the movie and watch and listen to us talk about it while you watch it, like a little watch along on
Yeah. Yeah. We might go a little faster than how the movie goes.
I'm not saying we're going to go beat by beat on the movie, but
you
know what I mean.
So a little history. I think we talked briefly about this in the last episode, but let me go through the rigmarole. So if you're just joining us for this podcast, we're an unofficial Disney Plus podcast. We enjoy reviewing the latest and sometimes not latest on Disney Plus, the most popular stuff, I guess, on Disney Plus. And this week we're talking about Flight of the Navigator. Yes, that one. The one that aired in 1986. There is talks of them actually rebooting, like to make like a new version of it, which I would believe. I think it's been talked about for 4 or 5 years, and in the last couple of years it seems to be ramping up. So we might see a remake of this in the next couple of years. 1986 for some of you listeners was before you were born. Some of you, it was when you were a kid, just like Jack and I. When this movie came out, I was 6 and Jack was 7.
Yes.
If it came out in the summer. And so kind of perfect age to go see this. The story of a boy who hits his head and realizes 8 years have passed while he hasn't aged a day, and that there is an alien spaceship that holds the truth to where he's been this whole time. And that's all I'm going to tell you. If you have not watched the movie, we are going to get into some spoilers and just kind of recap the entire movie. So maybe hit pause, go watch the movie, come back. Otherwise, if you don't mind being spoiled, we're going to go jump into that. But Jack, let's talk about what is your history with this movie? Did you see it in theaters?
I remember this one. No, I did not watch it in theaters. I definitely watched it on home VHS, probably. And it's probably actually in the early 90s, maybe late 80s when I actually saw it on VHS.
Right.
It is one that, along with Escape from Witch Mountain, along with Something Wicked This Way Comes, along with all the other Disney things that came out that were live action, that weren't animated, you either were all bought in or you were like, well, I don't know about that, Yeah. And this was definitely one that it wasn't like I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. But I knew that this was a little bit better than some of the other stuff that Disney put out that was live action. And the the CGI, I want to say CGI because they did use CGI on this.
And honestly, for mid 80s, it's pretty cutting edge.
And there's something they do late in the movie that is very funny to me when you had a technology that you didn't use much.
Yeah.
And then you get this technology and then you just keep hitting that button over and over again because you're like, we want to show off this technology. And then it's like the kid riding in the spaceship across the country several times for no apparent reason, like in this weird way, like this really odd. I don't understand it. Anyway,
I'm looking up when Terminator 2 came out.
T2 was what, 92, I think.
Okay.
I could be wrong on that. I think it's 92.
91. Yeah,
91.
so 5 years after this movie is when Terminator 2 came out.
Big difference.
And honestly, like, it's a lot of the same kind of looking technology, kind of like metal morphing right before your eyes kind of thing. But 5 years before Terminator 2 did it. Now, granted, it's with only one object, just the spaceship in this movie, versus lots of different things that they were doing.
In
with
Terminator's
T2,
James Cameron, and this movie is Randall Kleiser, which I'm excited actually to talk about some of his he has a really weird resume, like a really weird resume.
Yeah, by the time this movie came out, I actually found a 1986 film review. Like, it was like an archives
like
review.
This is the best.
Yeah, they were
like
very
any things
high on
I've read. They're always like, yeah, it's really really good.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes I think is like 80 something, and all those are like from 1986, I would assume. But yeah, they were pretty high on it. Did
they superimpose them from the past into their system?
It was like it wasn't Time. It was Los Angeles Times or New York or something like that.
Okay.
Some newspaper, but yeah, it had been archived, like digitized, basically.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So I read that review, and one of the things they were talking about was Randall Kleiser and how he basically was mostly known for Grease. Like the movie Grease came out,
and he's got other things that are like when we start talking about the movie, I'm kind of excited about.
Yeah,
talking about that cat, but.
So yeah, 1986 came out in the summer, tail end of the summer, right before school jumped back in 1986, August 1st, and had a $9 million budget, which that seems really low for some of the, especially the CGI stuff that they were doing. My guess is they weren't paying the actors very much, because a lot of these guys were unknown actors, or like even Sarah Jessica Parker, who's in this movie, is
by the way
super unknown at this point.
She's bad.
Yeah, she's pretty bad.
Like, she's bad. Oh, righteous David, you're so cool,
Just
Peter.
a sister.
Oh, what made you do? What got you in lockdown? Oh gosh.
$18 million in the box office, so it doubled its budget, but its budget wasn't very high. And I would imagine it's probably made quite a bit on VHS and DVDs and stuff like that.
Oh, I'd say so.
There's one thing I need to mention up front as far as the quality of watching this on Disney Plus. This looks like it was taken from a VHS tape. Like the way that
it has this older quality, like that and I mentioned the other ones, Escape from Witch Mountain, something Wicked This Way Comes. Those things, when you rewatch those things, they're very much like, they're just not like, they've shot those on different film, like that. Yeah, they're shot on a different, like on something different, and I'm sure someone that's listening has a better concept. Jerry McMullen will probably really be able to chime in here and say what type of film, but it has a different look to it. Yeah, and this was one where, like, I think they probably just had trouble finding the original reels or whatever to like, to get like a remastered version of this movie. You go back and watch like the Blu-ray version, today's Blu-ray version of Star Wars 1977, and it looks really good compared to this movie. And in fact, like even the like like that little like chime, like Disney music chime at the beginning, is warbled. Like the audio is warbled, and then there's actually artifacts on the screen during the first 5 minutes, like little black dots and vertical lines and stuff like that. Yeah, and this is on Disney Plus, on the Disney Plus service that I watched it. So it looks like it was, they were like, this is the best we could find from this archive, whatever at the bank. They pulled out drawer 67 and and this was what they found, and they were like, this is the best we got, the best version of this movie that we could find. I said it wrong. It's Return from Witch Mountain. Okay. So I was saying that wrong. There is an Escape from Witch Mountain movie. Is it called Escape? There is one. It's 1995, I think it said. Anyway. I was looking it up because I'd never heard of it. Anyway. The Rock is in that one. So honestly, like if you watched this on VHS when you were a kid, it probably still looks pretty similar to that. It looks to me like a 480p type kind of low res version of the movie. So, but I mean, I don't know that there's anything better out there, because as to my knowledge, this movie's never been released on Blu-ray. It's just older format. So, anyways, give me your just kind of overall thoughts on the movie, and then we'll kind of go beat by beat and go through the plot. It's a movie that has some really good aspects of it, because they're doing some cutting edge things technology wise with CGI. If you've ever listened to me talk on audio, like on podcasts or anything like that, and I remember talking about like child actors in movies, like I struggle I struggled with my. I just struggle not critiquing their horrible, acting, and so not to say they should dress up an adult as a child and have him be the navigator, but all I'm saying is that this kid David did fine. Like David was fine. I mean, he's very kid-like.
I think he
did emote. Moments. He had some good he did show emotion.
Yeah.
Pretty well. Some of the other people in the movie weren't very good actors.
Yeah, I agree.
talked about Sarah Jessica Parker earlier. She's just not that she's a great actress now, but she has, acting ability now. And
it kind of reminded me of like what you might see on 1980s television. Like that kind of acting.
Yeah, and had that feeling. And then there's just some things that the movie starts out with, and then by the end, it's kind of switched on its ear a little bit. Like,
there's a definite left turn in this movie about an hour in.
Well, I'm just going to spoil it. Max, the droid relations droid, that's part of the clone or the drone ship. Yeah. Basically, that he's the navigator of, which they don't really explain why he's the navigator at any point. Am I right? They don't say they really uploaded some. They used his whole brain. Yeah. Which, by the way, I've got another good take on the 10% of your brain thing, which is not real, but anyway. But
the only thing that they explained is that they downloaded like a million star charts into his brain.
Yeah, well, why is he I guess he's the navigator because of that.
Why he has to navigate around the Earth is never really explained.
Well, I think because at first it's not a big deal, and then
the whole premise of this movie at the halfway mark, when you find out what's really going on, the premise when it gets launched is, I need your help to get back home, like get back to whatever the name of his planet is.
What's it called? Phaleon or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
The big thing for me.
So he's the navigator to get them home, basically.
The part for me was Paul Rubens, who is Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, and I didn't. Here's my thing with Paul Rubens in this movie. I didn't know it was Paul Rubens until he started laughing,
and he started doing Pee Wee, and you're like, "What the heck?" And then when you know the director's background, he directed Pee Wee's Big Top Pee Wee.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense.
Like 2 years later or whatever it was.
Yeah,
and which is hilarious to me. Like I'm just like, oh really? Like, and Paul Rubens was a big time comedian at the time.
Huge at the time.
And so it's kind of like, oh, this is a big get, but now it seems so dated.
Yeah,
it would literally be like if they were like, and here's Max Headroom. Woo.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. Why? It's not like Jim Carrey. We wrote this movie in the '90s and we got Jim Carrey. It's like, well, Jim Carrey's still relevant today. Yeah. Paul Rubens is not.
And, well, to the point of actually, he's more stigma than he is anything else when you really think about Paul Rubens. But that was the character, he went from being a robot, which I kind of liked that because it was like, kind of like the robot on, you ever play the game Portal?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of like that robot on Portal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, that's kind of cool, actually. And then all of a sudden he turned into Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like it was like, which was weird. Like,
yeah, that's the left turn that I was referring to. And it is a tale of two movies up to that point. Like, the movie is pretty serious. There's not a lot of laughs in the first half of the movie, and then you make that left turn, and then it goes just straight comedy.
Well, it's almost like it was very sad whenever he's basically traveled in time. I mean, not traveled in time, but traveled in time, been dropped back off 8 years later or whatever.
Yeah,
and the world's changed and he's stayed the same. That's pretty sad.
Yeah.
And his family doesn't even know him, and he doesn't really know his family. And they've moved.
They're borderline like dark moments, like in the first 20 minutes of the movie, where you're just like, whoa, like this is pretty heavy, pretty serious.
Right. And then Sarah Jessica Parker showed up.
Yeah. And it all went downhill.
Hi, I'm Carolyn McAdams, and here's a robot. He brings in sandwiches and he messes it up a lot, but here he is. Yeah. Can you tell I'm not a big Sarah Jessica Parker fan? Can you tell?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't seen her in a whole lot. I strangely enough, and maybe this is just unique to like what age group we fall into, the two of us fall into. But when I started seeing Sarah Jessica Parker in like big time roles, even before Sex and the City, like the stuff that she was in, whatever, I was like, oh, that's the girl from Flight of the Navigator. Like I would always refer back to that movie because that was literally the first time I'd ever seen her in a movie. And then now it's like I don't think even people even know she was in this movie.
Well, I'll tell you this: she's in Footloose in 1984,
right?
As a cool high school kid.
She's kind of a background character, right?
But she's like the friend of the girl that's the main character.
Yeah.
And, cool kid. And then she's in this movie and she's like totally rad. Like 80s girl, like really, really weird. Anyway, the girl that went to see Twisted Sister in concert.
Yeah, and has pink hair.
Purple
hair.
Why do you have purple hair?
The only other movie that she'd done besides Footloose before this movie was Girls Just Want to Have Fun, and I think she did have more of a central role in that. And of course, she had done some television shows. She's in an entire season of a show, 3-2-1 or something like that. But anyway, she was, definitely an unknown actress at this point. She was 20 when she shot this film, which I'll get into some of the age differences between the two, her and David, which I think has kind of got some creepy moments, but
really weird stuff.
But she was definitely not a known actor. Paul Rubens, the opposite. He was very well known. But that was about it, right? Like the rest of the cast, even like the main character, David, I don't think probably anyone had ever seen him in a movie before.
No.
He had been in 2 or 3 other things, but in smaller roles. I think even just a voice part in a movie before this. But, and honestly, he's one of those 80s child actors that could never escape that. Like he was in, I think 2 or 3 other movies after this one. So 2 or 3 before, 2 or 3 after, and then basically disappeared off the face of the planet.
Howard Hesseman is Dr. Faraday, and he is 2 things. He's from Head of the Class. Before that, he's from WKRP in Cincinnati. And so whenever this movie came out, he was a hot ticket.
Okay.
This was he was a big get for them, I would say.
Okay.
Just because of that. The mom, I'd seen the mom in some things before. Is it Helen Freeman?
Yes. Veronica Cartwright.
Yeah. And so she's been in a lot of stuff since then and beyond. But anyway.
Strangely enough, just one more factoid before we get into the plot, but Paul Rubens is not credited as Paul Rubens at the end of this movie. So
Paul Mall.
Mall. Yeah, M-A-L-L.
Like the cigarette, Paul Mall. But the thing, and I don't know the connection between him and the director, what's the director? What did I say? Randall Kleiser. But Randall Kleiser, let me write this down for you real quick. John Randall Kleiser. He directed Grease in 1978. Blue Lagoon, which that's a big one, 1978. Flight of the Navigator. Big Top Pee-wee, and then White Fang, which I don't know, saw that. He also, hold on your hats, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Yeah, he's done more comedic stuff than serious stuff.
Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Remember that's 3D horribleness.
That's a ride at Disneyland. I think.
And then Red Riding Hood in 2006, and that's about it. It's about it.
Yeah.
And then a made-for-TV thing called Return to the Blue Lagoon. So good times.
The soundtrack is Alan Silvestri, and I honestly think the soundtrack is one of the best things about
it. Really
this movie.
is.
It's really
You're
good.
Right.
The music is very eerie. This movie immediately would have been at the time compared to previous films like Close Encounters or E.T. came out like a year or 2 before this. And I think for me at least, it's right up there with those scores. I think the music in this is actually really, really good. And I was surprised how much of the music I remembered. I hadn't seen this movie in 25 years probably. Well, and I remember some of the tunes.
When you think about this movie, I can't believe it only made $18 million at the box office off a $9 million budget, and it's like this. Like you think of Flight of the Navigator. Oh, well, obviously it was a big blockbuster hit. That's not a big blockbuster hit.
Yeah. For a Disney movie in the 80s, there's surprisingly a couple moments of strong language in the movie. There's an S word and like several D words and stuff like that. Nothing like there's no F bombs, but this movie originally did not start as a Disney movie. It was going to be an independent film.
Oh,
and Disney ended up buying the rights, taking it over, and then branding it as a Disney. It was Disney when it launched in theaters.
Weird,
but it did not start that way. And I think a lot of the edginess, some of the darkness of it, and the only movie to include stronger language before this was Popeye. And that just came out like a year or 2 before this one. So
Robin Williams.
Yeah, so clearly there's more Disney films after that that has some language.
Came out in 80.
I think audiences at the time would have been shocked by some of the language in the movie, just because it's not typical Disney going up to that point.
Well, but look what they did. Randall Kleiser's brother was the guy behind all the CGI in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
I think the CGI is fantastic for 1986.
Honestly, for what it is, it's much better than the Mandalorian. Not the Mandalorian, the Langoliers. TV movie.
Yeah, it was made for TV.
Wow.
So my history with it, I think I might have said last episode that I saw this in theaters, but watching it this time, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. I think my history with it is really similar to yours. I'm 95% positive that we recorded this off of our television onto a blank VHS tape, and that's how I watched it. Mm-hmm. And honestly, the fact that I was able to quote parts of this movie, having not watched it for 25 years, tells me we watched it probably more than 20 times growing up. Like for whatever reason, my brother and I loved this movie and we watched it over and over and over again.
Two brothers, and they were kids.
Yeah, I
saw related.
Myself. Well, and our age difference was pretty similar to theirs, and so my brother and I are almost 3 years apart, and these brothers are 4 years apart. So I saw myself in David. I'm the older brother of me and my brother, so I saw myself in David quite a bit. All right, let's kind of go through recap. We'll kind of skip over maybe some of the boring parts, but I think there's some legitimate plot here. The setup of the movie I think is pretty strong. So it starts out in 1978. Again, the movie came out in 1986, and eventually we get to 1986 pretty quickly. But the first 10 minutes or so is in 1978. It's July 4th. It's Fort Lauderdale, Florida. This family of four. They have a 12-year-old and an 8-year-old. It's David and
Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, the nerdy, the geeky brother.
Chef Jeff.
They are, at first I thought the dog, like the whole first 2 minutes, whatever, during the opening credits is like this Frisbee throwing competition for dogs. And I thought this dog's going to be like a major part of this movie. You almost literally never see Bruiser after the first.
Can I tell you, did I tell you this in the movie? What's the Easter egg for this movie? Is that their dog, what's his name? Bruiser. Bruiser is actually a relative of all the Airbuds. Did you know that?
Ooh,
in this movie,
it's
a tie-in to an overarching universe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not real, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. That's good. Fan fiction.
I called some people in the studios. They told me that I had to really
they're gonna make it happen. I
had to really dig for that information. And they're coming out with a new movie called Bruiser and Airbuds Mom.
The Frisbee Dog Championship is there's no lines being spoken over it. It's just opening credits. You're seeing a lot of text on the
slow-mo.
screen. And it is coming into starting the movie off with some rockin' 80s music.
But it was 1978.
Yeah. Well, that's true, but the movie was 86. But and at that point, you know that you're in for just an absolute trip of going back in time.
Yeah, nostalgia.
Yeah, if you grew up in the 80s, I think there's a lot to identify.
And that is a cool thing about this. Because you're right, there is a lot of random cool stuff. They never went to a mall. If they went to a mall, this would have really sealed the deal.
Honestly, there are other 80s movies that are like quintessentially 80s, but I would honestly put this up against any of those movies as far as like the references and
some of the trope.
And the way that they're dressed, it's tube socks and slip and slides
and Twisted Sister.
Yeah. And even some of the slang, like, butt face, scuzz bucket, stuff like that.
Radical, the brother, when he comes back in time, or he comes back basically, his brother's like, that's radical.
Yeah. The geek is mentioned a lot, and it's not like in the traditional sense of what we think of as geek. Like back then, people were you would call someone a geek if they were just not with it at all, like not cool.
Right.
And so it's just really interesting to go back to it. But David has to basically. I'm going to skipping over some of the few things that happens at the very beginning. But what you need to know from the very beginning of the movie is that Jeff, his little brother Jeff, is at a party. They drop him off at a party.
Hold on, though. I got something very important here.
Okay.
They're in the car coming back from Dog Frisbee show, and they're driving down the street, and it's kind of there's this house here. Look, Terry's outside. Mom, Dad, and this is Jeff talking. Can I go to Terry's house? And they're like, okay, sure, but okay, we'll go out there. He's holding this sparkler. Yes, Terry or whatever the kid's name is. I'm making up Terry. Terry sounds like a perfect name for this kid.
Okay.
Shirt off, a little bit of a mullet, and he's holding this sparkler, right? And he's like, all right, well, hey, be careful around those fireworks, okay? And then that's when him and his brother, he yells out the back seat of the station wagon because
Yeah.
the backward facing seat in the station wagon you would never have now.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, whatever, butt face, like your whole run of things.
Scuzz
Bucket, butt face, blah, blah, blah. He goes, and then his brother Jeff wiggles his butt at him.
Oh, yeah, I
And he
forgot
goes,
about that.
you're never, and okay, ready for this? This is what David says. You're not going to make it to your 9th birthday. My son is 9.
Yeah.
Hear me out. We've just dropped off an 8-year-old. Think about this time.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of that stuff in this.
You're dropping off your 8-year-old where there are fireworks at someone else's random house.
Yeah.
Make sure you come home. Make sure you walk home. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
What?
Walk home. Yep.
It's a mile to their house through the woods.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what sets up this whole thing.
Yeah.
They're sending
Well-
8-year-old Jeff through the woods, and he has to walk a mile through the woods
To get
at
home.
night.
Yeah.
At one point, they had to cross a train track to get home.
Yeah.
I think about my own son, and I'm like, our society, we are soft.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was shocked by that too.
I know my brother and I, we were pretty young when my parents left us at home alone. Like, we were pretty young.
Yeah.
But like, this is unbelievable. I would never let my son walk that far by himself in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah. So like right after that, basically they send David to go get him. They're like, okay, go get your brother and bring him back.
And he goes, oh, he's 8. He'll be fine. That's what David says. It's like this weird, like.
So they send their 12-year-old. They basically kind of live like in the like swamp, like kind of a swampy area of Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Which is that real?
Is
that really?
I've never been to Fort Lauderdale.
Well, but Fort Lauderdale's on the ocean, I'm assuming, and they keep showing the beach. They show the beach, or they show the waterfront at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's there's definitely water, like ingress of water into the area or whatever. But he's going through what it kind of looks like a kind of a swampy forest type thing, and it's pitch black out there, and he's 12, and I'm just like, dude, like literally anyone could be out there, and I guess that's stuff that people didn't think about back then. It's hard to believe, but.
Again, our world's just a horrible place now. I don't know.
When I was watching that scene, I was just like, man, like I can't believe they're just allowing him to do this, but it's also much different time back then, I guess. But anyways.
Maybe they're irresponsible parents. Maybe the whole the moral here is how irresponsible they really are.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Could be.
Sorry. I wanted to rant about that a little bit.
Yeah, no,
like,
I was going to say
are you kidding me?
If you didn't say something, I was going to say something about it.
I think at that age, you can just like, why? Like, how's that possible? So.
So, anyways, he gets Jeff, and then they start walking back home. And
no, he doesn't
Jeff
get Jeff.
actually,
they walk through the woods, and Jeff jumps out of a tree at him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Jeff was already on his way.
He scares him.
He was already on his way home, and Jeff jumped out of a tree.
Yeah. So, anyways, Jeff takes off, and then David basically slips down this ravine,
into like a hole.
A little hill, whatever. Hits his head, and I guess gets knocked out. He kind of assuming he goes unconscious at that point. When he wakes up, 8 years have passed. So the very first thing he does is, of course, go back to. He thinks it's just been a couple hours. So he goes back to his house. Jeff is nowhere to be found, and it's 1986 now from 1978, and his parents don't live there anymore. And there's kind of this weird, like, creepy scene where he goes and he's like, "Mom, where's my mom?" Like
some older lady.
Yeah. And they're like being really nice to him. And
they really were nice,
like allowing him to come into their house and start walking around.
Starts coming in their house.
But and it gets even creepier from there. They're like, "Hey, what's your name?" Whatever, and he's like just kind of slumped on the stairs, crying, like. And they end up taking him down to the precinct, and they're asking him what his name is, and they find this missing persons report from 1978, 8 years ago. And he's like, yeah, this is his description. And he's wearing the same clothes, he's the same age. Like, he looks exactly the same as this kid that disappeared 8 years ago. He hasn't aged a day. And at this point, I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
Everything I remembered from this movie, from watching this movie in the 80s and in the 90s, was the second half of this movie. I had no memory of the first half. I didn't even remember that the main character disappears for 8 years and that everyone has grown up besides him. That's a pretty crucial part of the plot of this movie and the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I just blanked out on all of that. That tells you everything that you need to know about why I watched this movie when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less about the setup, the premise. Yeah, I just wanted to see Paul Rubens.
Yeah. Gosh. Paul Rubens.
So that's kind of what happens. I did think it was kind of funny that his parents, it's only been 8 years, but now his parents look like grandparents now. Like they have like gray hair and receding hairlines.
They did some weird stuff. They took mom's hair and like matted it down and switched it way back.
Yeah.
Like you said, dad's hairline was like makeup up to make it look like he's balder.
Yeah.
Because that actor doesn't look that old. Like he's in other 80s movies, that actor is, and he doesn't look that old. So
yeah.
it's really weird.
It looks like they aged like 15 years. And I've seen some reviews of like, like the emotional strain of losing their son 8 years ago, like really aged them.
They read into it that much. Like people really read into this that much that they felt like they needed to explain that away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, whatever.
So I kind of laughed at that. They see Jeff. Jeff comes in. He's now a 16-year-old high schooler, and obviously like he tries to convince David. He's like, no, I'm really Jeff, and he's saying things that only Jeff would know. And he's like, look, it's not easy for me to believe that you're really David, but I can see that you're David. Like you look exactly the way I remember you from 8 years ago. They're in the hospital. Turns out he's going to have to be there for a couple days. They run again. This movie's pretty dark and serious. The first half, they run like brain tests on him. They've got like all these leads attached to his head.
Really weird technology that he's like it comes back in binary and then it translates it to actual pictures.
And at the time, like in 1986, I don't know when you guys got your first computer. We were one of the first people.
93 probably, 94 maybe.
Our family
it was a long time.
My dad was super into like technology and like he had to have the latest and greatest, and so we were probably one of the first people on our block that ever had a personal computer. But I feel like we maybe got one like a year or two after this. Like computers were not known quantities.
Well, because
at the time.
they only did particular things, and if you didn't do those particular things, then there was no real point of having it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this isn't like Microsoft Windows time. This is like
before Tetris.
Command prompt text.
Before Tetris, you wouldn't even really want a computer then. It's before Tetris. Who cares, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
can you play Minesweep?
So yeah, they're kind of just talking to each other and kind of helping each other out. As this is happening, and I've skipped over a few scenes, I'm just kind of trying to talk about it all at once. It keeps cutting back and forth between UFO stuff, NASA stuff, and this family, and it's all happening in real time together. Apparently, July 4th, Independence Day, is the day that aliens love to visit Earth. I had a good laugh about that too. I was just like, little did we know that Independence Day would come out 10 years after this movie.
That is true. That is true. Exactly 10 years.
Yeah, 1996, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Also on Independence Day, the aliens visited them, and they have this UFO. I think the UFO in general, I think, is really cool. Like I even watching it now, the mystery around it and how cool it looks. Like it kind of looks like this clamshell thing. It's like you're not your typical, especially for 1980s. Like we thought flying saucers were literally flying saucers that look like frisbees.
Or there'd be something that would look like a ship. There'd be an actual front to it, an actual back to it, and this thing's more fluid looking.
Yeah,
so.
And it's very, it's almost, I don't think this is the way you meant it, but like it's very liquid. It's very liquid
metal.
The way that it runs, and morphs and opens up. There's no door. There's no way in or out of this thing, but the door just like morphs. Open. The steps come out in almost liquid form and then solidify.
Right.
I thought all that stuff was really cool.
I like that Dr. Faraday. And this is giving a hint, but that Dr. Faraday later in the movie is like, all right, David. Come out, come away from the ship. He kept doing it. David had been gone for like hours riding around the ship.
Yeah.
He watched him get into the ship. And then when the door opens in front later in the movie, all right, David, come back here to the ship. Like, he's not going to come to you.
Yeah.
Like, why would he come to you? It's like the Smurfs be like Gargamel going, all right, Smurfs, come to me. Come here, Smurfs.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gargamel.
David is starting to hear voices in his head. They think he's completely off his rocker until he starts like with his brain, like without like telling anyone anything, starts like draws a picture of the UFO, like the same UFO that they've been studying that no one knows about, and certainly this kid couldn't possibly know anything about. And so Faraday, who's the NASA, anytime we say Faraday, but government agency, he says, he goes somehow finds out about this. They kind of skip over that part. Somehow they're notified that this kid just drew a picture of a UFO. And he goes to the hospital, says, I can offer you, he's talking to the parents too, I can offer you the truth. All I need is for you to be at the base for 48 hours with my staff.
Yeah, they always say that, Phil.
Yeah, and they always lie.
I want you to understand this. They will always, listen, anyone within the earshot of my voice, they'll always lie to you. That's the first thing they'll say to you. It's only going to be 48 hours. Yeah, right.
Oh, that's got political.
Sure. Not political. It's the truth.
All right.
Don't let them abduct you. Go, Phil.
Yeah. Basically, they say if you want to learn where you've been for the last 8 years, I think that we can help with that. Like we can get you that information. Why you don't remember anything, why you haven't aged. So he gets there, and now we're getting to Sarah Jessica Parker. He gets to the NASA facility where they're studying this UFO, and in the hangar that's kind of down the road from this house that they have him in. And first we meet Ralph. Who's the
RALF robotic assistant
labor
facilitator.
Yeah,
Ralph.
He's basically the mail robot, like MAIL, the mail.
No.
He delivers the mail,
and he's so ridiculous. And then here's Sarah Jessica Parker, who's equally as ridiculous. So
yeah, I remember her. Like 25 years later, I still remember her in this role. I do. Like I must have, I don't know. For some reason, maybe I thought she was cute or something like that. But I remember.
No, I mean
her.
she's a quintessential '80s actress. It's like, it's not that she's not, popular or known. It just I'm just annoyed sometimes by her.
But as Jack described earlier, she has purple hair. She just came from a Twisted
on the back,
Twisted Sister
just a little bit of purple hair.
Yeah,
and goes.
David immediately takes a liking to her, and I don't think it's intended to be romantic, but there's some weird moments between the two.
It's definitely Anakin Padme weird.
It
first
is.
Movie.
That's a good comparison.
David goes, what? Why do you have purple hair? She looks at him like, what are you talking about? And then she's like, literal, you watch it back, 4 or 5 seconds. Oh, and then she starts touching her hair, and she's like, I went to Twisted Sister. I saw Twisted Sister last night. And then David, of course, hilariously says, who's she? Because he's from 1978.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
He doesn't know who Dee Snider is. He has no idea.
And she says, it's a he. Actually, several he's.
Actually, it's a they.
It's a they.
And then he's like, okay.
Whatever. He's never seen a music video before. She helps him turn on the TV.
He makes a reference about the Bee Gees. He says, my mom took me to see the Bee Gees last year. And she doesn't really blink about that, but
yeah.
I don't know. There you go.
Here at the NASA facility, they have better equipment. Obviously, they hook up to more sophisticated computers, more sophisticated like cables to his brain.
Yes. More sophisticated Commodore 64s.
The computers just immediately go on the fritz. I don't know if that's because he's closer to the UFO. They never really explain that. That's kind of what I thought.
His mental abilities.
Yeah, he has like a better reception to the UFO. I don't know.
It's true.
At this point, you don't even know that the UFO is a drone ship, like an unpiloted drone
You assume
ship.
there's aliens in it.
Yeah. You think that there's someone that's hurt, maybe on the inside. They even make reference to that as like, there could be someone that needs medical attention, like an alien that needs medical attention on the inside. It turns out there's nobody in there. It's just basically a computer that's running this thing, which makes sense why the computers go on the fritz and all that kind of stuff. But they ask him, where have you been the last 8 years? He says, I don't know, but the screen actually answers for him, which I thought that was pretty cool. The screen says, in analysis mode on Phelan, which we don't understand at this moment, but we find out what that means later. They asked him Faraday actually immediately very quickly assumes what's going on here. And he gets right to the point. He says, what powered the craft that you were traveling in? Like he goes right to because
that's what they're after.
Issue.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
They always want that, Bill.
Yeah, they sure do. Them.
Continue.
The screen goes crazy with alien language, like it's all kinds of stuff they don't understand.
It's like Matrix language.
It shows them a planet Phelan that is 560 light years away. It's uncharted space. They've never even gone that far with all their instruments, and it describes on screen that they traveled from there 560 light years to Earth in 2.2 hours, solar hours is what it says. And so they quickly determined that if light speed theory is correct and Einstein knew what he was talking about and all that kind of stuff, that if he traveled there and back in 4.4 hours, 8 years would have passed on here. But because you're traveling faster than the speed of light, the people that are on that craft don't age,
right?
And while everyone else ages around them. So, and they see Phelan, they see all the star charts and everything like that. Up to this point, I'm in. Like I'm like, this is cool. I like the setup. I like the fact that they're explaining why he's been gone, where he doesn't remember anything. It's only been 4.4 hours.
And I like that. I always like stuff like that. You went somewhere, now you've come back. Time has continued on, but it's the same for you. But everyone else has changed.
Yeah, and
time travel's fun.
I remember Sarah Jessica Parker, like little snippets of scenes I remembered from 25 years ago, the last time I saw this movie. But all of the details of the plot, I have no memory of, and I think it's probably because I just didn't care when I was a kid. But
no, and you don't.
The sci-fi 40-year-old in me just loves all this Einsteinian theory of relativity, relativity and light speed and stuff like that. So I was in. I was like, this is pretty cool. I like this. I like where this is going. Then everything changes. It gets darker. Carolyn tells him he's not going to be there for just 48 hours. They lied.
They lied. Yeah, you're not going to be here that long, dude. Cowabunga.
She becomes kind of like the insider that is helping him kind of on his side.
For him.
Yeah. He whispers to her to go tell his parents that they're locking him up. He said, get my parents on the phone, get them here. They'll help me. And then it gets a little creepy. I wanted to mention this. And I remembered this scene from 25 years ago. There's a scene where she actually takes her hand and tucks his hair behind his ear for him, and kind of in a lovingly, kind of gesture, and then says, you're cute. Has a girl ever told you that before? Sarah Jessica Parker in this movie is 20 years old. And I didn't look up how old David was, but I believe he's probably pretty close to 12 in this movie. A 20-year-old is doing this to a 12-year-old. You're cute. Has a girl ever told you that before?
So
tucking his hair behind his ear. As a 40-year-old, especially of now a father, you're a father, I was super creeped out by this scene.
Yeah.
To me, it was a different time back then, but
even then, I don't know why they have to do that. Why?
Super weird.
Yeah.
And he's smiling. He's definitely enamored with her. They never. There's no affection from him to her at all, which thank God.
Yeah, because if they did, yikes.
Yeah, but it is so weird to go back and watch now. Yep. I mean, especially in just where we're at politically and just gender roles and everything. I just couldn't believe that they had that part in there, that scene in there. Anyway, the alien starts talking to him directly, like he's again hearing full sentences from the alien. He says, "Help me, come find me." He tells him to get inside Ralph, this transport robot, basically, who's conveniently empty with no mail in him at the moment.
Ralph.
David climbs in Ralph. Some more rock and 80s music plays. I say that tongue in cheek, but the music is legit. It was music that was, I'm sure, written by Alan Silvestri, but was written for this movie. But it feels like anything in it from the 80s that you would hear on the radio. Really, really good stuff. He gets transported to the UFO, goes into the UFO, and then what do you think about the interior and everything? There's no CGI here. It's all practical. That
use of that set design for that spaceship.
By the way, it's 45 minutes into the movie. We're halfway through the movie. We finally get to the UFO.
Really good. The inside, awesome. Inside for me better than the outside.
Oh yeah,
because the inside looks like not human. This chair comes out of the floor, so it's kind of and it's able to kind of fit to him a little bit.
Yeah,
as best they could in 1986.
Yeah,
and it's all shiny, which is key. I say this about Space Odyssey, 2001: Space Odyssey. The key to Kubrick making that movie look futuristic, shiny.
Yeah,
and that's what they did with this.
Yeah,
make it shiny. Star Wars was cool because Star Wars makes things look aged. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Makes their spaceships look aged.
Yeah.
This, though, is futuristic and shiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked it. I thought it was
as soon as
awesome.
I saw the interior with all the different dials.
Did this
and
not
the
win
buttons
something
and
for
stuff, I
set
was like,
design?
That's cool.
Did this not
It
win?
should have. Like honestly, like
awards for set
the
design?
way that they made that thing look like a truly alien craft was, I thought, impressive. Really impressive for that time. So, and again,
it doesn't
like,
list any awards.
all the Star Wars movies had come out at this point. Even Return of the Jedi was
Yeah,
3
so
years
there's
old.
a really the hurdle, the watermark is really high. Like the bar is set very, very high.
Yeah.
For this movie to do anything good because it's a space movie, so you've got to doll it up somehow. But I thought that's one of the best part for me, probably.
Yeah, I was impressed. I remember watching this as a kid, just being shocked.
Even
by
the
how it
alien
looked.
thing, even the Max thing, before it turned into
Yeah.
Pee-wee's Playhouse, like literal, like Conky from Pee-wee's Playhouse. Like I was on board with that thing. I thought that thing was cool.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is neat.
Yeah.
Keep it a robot. Okay, whatever. And then it was like, why they need to do that?
Yeah.
Like literally, I don't think it helped. I don't think it helped the movie.
Yeah, and honestly, I think watching David walk into the thing and seeing, I think acting wise, he does pretty good for the most of the movie. The shock and awe in his face, I think transfers to the audience really well.
Yeah.
In this moment,
Yeah.
like you can see that he truly is amazed and drawn to this unbelievable thing that he's never seen before.
Right.
And keep in mind, like people had televisions, of course, but personal computers and like anything that's real techie, like we have, computers in our pockets now, like that, none of that existed back then. So like what this kid would literally have never seen anything close to this anywhere. I mean, and I love how he looks as he's walking in.
Inside the ship, there's an internal wall of the ship that is the wall. And then it becomes a screen.
Yeah.
And shows things on the screen, right?
Yeah, everything morphs.
And in a Star Wars world, in a Star Trek world, but the kid, you're right, the kid does a really good job of acting like any of us would have in 1986 to be like, what does that do? Like, I can't believe that. Like,
yeah, how's this even working?
Yeah. I remember in 1988, we won this prize, this little bitty miniature television set, like a little TV that was like a handheld TV, and it just had an antenna on it. And if you were in the city or around Springfield, you could get stations on it. It was in color.
Oh, cool.
And it was color. And so I remember seeing that thinking, this is unbelievable. I can't believe we own this.
Mm-hmm.
And two, it works and blah, blah, it's color TV, right? And this is Sony, by the way. and compared to that, like this is the Flight of the Navigator inside of the ship is unbelievable. So
yeah,
the kid did a good job of showing emotion.
Yeah, I think this movie kind of took a little bit of turn from that conversation. I think this movie does a really good job of kind of that child fantasy fulfillment.
Yes.
Especially, I don't know, maybe this isn't true. If you're a girl listening to this and you were captivated in the same way, write the show and let us know. But I almost feel like boys in particular would see the aspect of like this. He's going to fly a UFO, like he's going to fly a spaceship.
Yes,
is really enticing. I think to every boy in that position would be like, yes, let's do this. And so I think they do a pretty good job of that payoff. But we don't know everything that's going on. There's been little teases and hints, but what we do know is he says, "Sit down, Navigator." Like you said, the chair comes up from nothing out of the floor, and he says, "You have the information I require to complete my mission." He's talking very computer, and like he's speaking like a computer would speak. Your brain has been programmed with all the appropriate star charts. You are the Navigator.
You are the Navigator.
And then at this point, word's gotten out that like the ship is moving and morphing, and a door appeared and steps appeared, and this kid got in there. The door is still open, by the way, and everyone descends on this hangar. Like everyone's running. The security, NASA security, Faraday, lots and lots of guns, and David freaks out. Obviously he already doesn't trust these guys. The NASA guys are kind of posed as the bad guys, so to speak. They're not truly bad, but like they're definitely the threat to him at this point. And so he freaks out and he says, "Get us out of here." And one of the one single word line that I remembered so much from this movie is compliance. He says compliance so many times in this movie, and I remember actually saying compliance a lot as a kid, like playing with my brother and stuff like that. We remembered compliance. So he goes compliance, whatever, and the UFO basically shoots the doors open with like some kind of electric lightning strike.
Current that can take it over and make it work.
Yeah. Exits the hangar. I thought the visuals looked pretty good. And actually the ship itself kind of shape shifts, like just changes right before your eyes.
Yeah.
And then he says, what, where would you like to go? He's like, I don't care. Just take me 20 miles from here. And he takes them 20 miles straight
up, which is really cool.
They hit literal space, like outer space, breaks the atmosphere, everything. And he's floating in the middle of the ship. I thought all this looked so cool. I was so in at this point. I thought it all looked great. At one point, he says, "No, take me back down." So they go back down. It stops, like hovers, like 2 feet above the ground, or exactly where they left. Then it kind of morphs into this like bullet arrow.
Yeah,
shape.
what he did say level. He said they were not level 3, but I'm trying to think of the name, the wordage he uses. Anyway, this is a level. What does a level 1 be like? And then it morphs into that pointy shaped front end ship.
Yeah. Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, looks like Padme's ship from Phantom Menace.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah. And then we kind of get they stop like in the middle of this field or whatever, and they kind of get the full story out. So it turns out that this Trimaxian drone ship, which is why he calls it Max, Trimaxian drone ship from Phalon, is basically on like a sample searching mission, like going from planet to planet, collecting alien life from all these planets. Humans are the main interest here on planet Earth, obviously. Take them back to Phalon and then study them for a few hours, whatever, and then put them right back where they found them, return them. And he just so happens he chose David. He found him in that ravine, knocked out or whatever. He's like, okay, this is an easy get. He discovered that humans only use 10% of their brains, so he filled up the other 90% with star charts. And I feel like you want to say something.
All right, so there's this fallacy that a lot of people, this myth that a lot of people attribute to Einstein, which is actually not true, and no one really knows the initial idea that we only use 10% of our brains.
Yeah,
but our brains, all parts of our brains, are working at all times.
In use, yeah,
in use at all times. Now, if you're saying it's not all filled up with memories or thoughts or trivia facts about Pokemon Go, then yeah, right.
Could
it's
be
not
right.
all filled up with files of blah blah, but it's like all the things in our brain, like our brain is being used. Like if that weren't the case, if you're someone who believes in, let's say you believed in evolution, well, eventually, or natural selection or whatever, your brain would eventually get rid of the parts it doesn't use. Like it's, you know what I'm saying? Like our appendix aren't really things that are used as much. And actually, that's even been proven a little bit false because our bodies still do use our appendix in some way. But anyway, like it would eventually just get rid of those parts of your brain if it didn't use it. And it's like this movie is one thing that's attributed, not saying solely, because there are other things. The movie Limitless, remember this?
Oh yeah.
20% was in that movie. They talk about 20%.
I've heard 20% more than I've heard 10.
The 10% though, I vividly remember 10% because I remember thinking when I was younger, man, it would be awesome to be so smart that I could use more than 10% of my brain. What would it be like? And then actually, the 10% thing you read for this one, it motivated me to be like I can do more than just this 10%.
Yeah.
Which is this really weird, like, that's odd. But anyway.
Yeah.
10%. Don't believe it, folks. Listen, if you can hear my voice, they want you to believe that you're only using 10% of your brain. You are better than that. You listening to me right now? Yes, you. Yep, you. Surely you're at least using, 11 or 12%. Back to you, Phil.
Thank you. Back to you in the studio. But yeah, they definitely kind of play it off as like you're only using 10% of your C drive on your computer.
That's essentially what it is. Like you have much more RAM space, much more memory you can put in there. We have got all kinds of things we can put in there.
So I'm going to fill up the rest of your C drive with star charts, basically. And fill it up to 100%, which you think would cook his brain more than anything. But at any rate, they just kind of gloss over that.
And then he complains about he's later on when they want to time travel.
Yeah.
Which is possible, which is crazy.
Right.
You're too fragile. You couldn't handle it.
Can't handle it.
But we'll fill your brain up with star charts.
90% of your brain, star charts. Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, you can't think too hard about this movie for sure.
It is a kids movie.
It turns out that was a very lucky thing that happened, that he downloaded all of his star charts into David's brain, because when he tries to attempt to return David to Earth 4.4 hours later, he crashes into electrical towers, which basically fries his charts on the ship. It's very convenient. And so he needs the charts in David's brain to get back home. The ship can, and he also mentions at this point that the ship can time travel. He normally actually uses that feature and takes specimens back to their exact time, since space-time and the way light speed works and everything monkeys with that. Mm-hmm. But he's, like you said, the human brain can't handle that. So he said that is why everything has happened to you. So no human, Faraday included, could explain it, but this computer on this ship basically tells him exactly what's going on. Then he shows him all these other specimens, which I kind of forgot about this. I remember the little baby one, the puckmarin, that he ends up taking a liking to.
The rest of them.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like I called the eyeball one, right, like 3 seconds before it, because it was like, it just triggered like my memory from 25 years ago. Yeah. But I forgot that there were even specimens on the ship until I was watching it. And then I was like, oh yeah. And then I think there's one that he likes. And like, it all kind of came back to me rushing back. This movie transported me back to the early 90s pretty quickly just by watching it.
It's crazy.
It's kind of crazy to have that experience. But the cute one is called a puckmarin and kind of becomes a bit of a pet for David.
Something happens at the end.
Yeah, we see him at the very end of the movie. And it's really the only one that they give. That the puckmarin's going to be special because it's the only one that has a backstory. Like he tells a little bit about all of them. Like, oh, I found him on this planet,
but that one's nasty. Don't touch him.
But the puckmarin, he's like, yeah, his planet was destroyed by a comet, and it's like it's very sad and emotional.
So he has no place for me to send him to.
Yeah, he's homeless. He's this cute little homeless thing.
He costs $60 to adopt, though.
Yeah, pick him up at your local pet store
and have him spayed and neutered.
So they and then he says, okay, well, let's do this. Like, I want you to be able to get back to your home planet of Phelan. So you got everything you need is in my brain. So how do we do this? He says, well, simple. I'm just gonna scan your brain for 3 seconds and I'll have all of it, and this will all be over. I'll take you back to your parents. And so
here it goes.
He performs a mind transfer.
Here it goes.
And at this point, the movie takes a hard, and I mean a hard left turn.
Continue. I'm going to tell you why it takes a left turn.
It gets really, really silly. At this point, I think it was maybe right before this, he's trying to teach Max how to laugh, and he hasn't done the mind transfer left, and so he's like, ha, 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 ha. Where I was like, is that Paul Rubens? And
wait a minute.
Then it becomes very clear that it's Paul Rubens after the mind transfer. So, so he gets all of the star charts out of Max's brain during the mind transfer, but he also gets all of his human emotions for some reason, and that's never explained. And he basically becomes human-like, and childlike. Really, like, keep in mind he's basically sucking up all the emotions and thoughts of a 12-year-old boy, and so he's acting. From this point on, the robot is basically, we've never really talked about it. Kind of looks like a Star Warsian kind of eyeball robot.
Yes.
Is basically a 12-year-old child for the rest of the film.
Yes.
And it goes
and not just
crazy after this.
Not just any 12-year-old child. A certain 12-year-old child named Pee Wee Herman.
Yes.
Paul Rubens, or Paul Mall,
as he's credited. They might as well have played this music.
That's right. It's Pee Wee's Playhouse. And the movie goes from being kind of a unique idea with a very chromium-looking, beautiful feel to now Paul Rubens is inserted into the movie, and it's time for him to take over. Once you let Paul in, guys, there's no getting out of there. There's no getting him out of there. So,
by the way, I feel like most of the commercials for this movie were from like this last 25 minutes of the movie, but it literally is the last. I think it's maybe the last 20 minutes of the movie.
But I don't know why they did that.
Robot.
Like, I look at it from a now standpoint, and you're like, I don't know. Did you like it? The change when you were little? You were watching this and going, that was cool whenever he changed. He got emotions.
I remember as a kid watching this thinking it was hilarious.
Oh, yeah. I would.
It doesn't hold up.
Even at the time, I've been like, wait, what? What happened? But have you ever seen the movie Short Circuit? Short Circuit is about this robot, and
that's another movie I
he's
love.
like, but he's kind of whimsical comedy like that too, and that's basically what they're like segued this into Short Circuit basically.
Yeah,
but I can't remember if Short Circuit came out before or after. But like they're basically like the kid David had to explain things to the robot, to Max, before Pee-wee, right? Well then, and then that way, Max's character could be this very antiseptic, very sterile character that David had to add the seasoning to, salt and pepper, right?
Right.
Well, then they're like, you know what? Let's just make a Monte Cristo sandwich with the robot Maximilian, and we're gonna he's gonna take over now.
Whoa! This can't be happening. I think I've gotten some stuff out of your head that has nothing to do with navigating this ship.
You sound just like a human.
You sound like Paul Rubens.
No! That dumb dog will never learn to catch a frisbee.
You are an inferior species, you dumb dork.
Butt face.
Scuzz bucket.
Oh my gosh!
So, and it's 20 minutes of that for the whole rest of the film.
Yeah, and then you have that, and the other thing that happens is they go on their journey because they get out away from the bad guys, quote unquote. Who, by the way, the military helicopters are like news helicopters chasing them around. They rented 3 helicopters from some guy for this movie.
Yeah.
Like I expected it to be like military-looking helicopters following them around.
Yeah. It's
and then the scientists from NASA.
Well, when you think about the budget, the $9 million is all they have to
here's
spend.
Faraday, the scientists from NASA. At one point, the ship takes off. They end up figuring out where they're at because he's stopped to go to the bathroom in this field with these cows, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he basically is like, Faraday's like, okay, there they are. We found them where they're at. Which, how they track them, I don't know. But he's like, the helicopter's coming, they're hovering. And then all of a sudden, the ship takes off, like the spacecraft takes off. And Faraday goes, well, can you follow him? You're a NASA scientist. You know how fast helicopters travel, and this thing can travel at the speed of light.
Yeah.
Answer your own question.
Yeah. The helicopter guy's like, I can't even see him.
Can you follow him?
Yeah.
Anyway, again, kid movie.
Yeah, it is very kid crazy at
be.
this point. Did you watch this with Miller? Did Miller see this?
No, he wasn't up this morning when I was watching it.
I'd be very interested to see his take
He wouldn't have
on
watched
the
it.
last 20 minutes.
He would get
of it.
tired of it. I think he'd probably get tired of that.
So he would think that the last 20 minutes would be just too stupid.
Yeah, he wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
But yet then apparently Jeff, the 8-year-old, is more mature than my son. He can walk a mile through the woods over train tracks to get home.
Yeah.
Through the swamp.
I think the only thing that's really interesting, I kind of wonder if this movie if that character wasn't voiced by Paul Rubens, what our take would be on it. Because the premise,
I just wanted it to be the robot.
Yeah, the premise of it is not terrible. Like that a computer doesn't know how to handle human emotions like that. I'm not opposed to that as a premise for an idea. But the way that they took it and the way it's just so distinctly Paul Rubens.
Pee-wee was a character. Paul Rubens was a character in things before that.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh to think, like, Pee-wee was a character.
But yeah, Pee-wee's Playhouse started in like 81 or something like that.
Well, or it was before 86, or it was around the same time.
Yeah.
But why did they decide to have that? Like, wouldn't have everyone known? That would be like being, I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, I said Max Headroom earlier, if you guys don't know who that is. But like, I'm trying to think of another 80s like character or even a 90s character. Like, if you had Urkel come on and like Jaleel White comes on and does the voice of Jaleel White for the robot, you'd be like, why is Urkel in this now?
Let me throw out a different name that I think has more like permanent resonance because it's hard. You have to think of someone that wasn't just popular in a single decade. What if it was Robin Williams?
That'd be fine. I can handle that.
Yeah.
But Pee-wee is very 80s, like
yeah,
and at the time they're not thinking that. At the time they're thinking Pee-wee is big money. We've got Pee-wee. Hey, we got Pee-wee in this movie.
Yeah,
and now we're like, ugh, we got Pee-wee in this movie.
Yeah,
ugh.
I would be fascinated.
Robin Williams would be fine.
It's too late now since he's passed, but like I would love to see a Robin Williams remake. like where he's the voice of that. Even now, like if Robin was still with us, I think that would be. I would love to hear him as that.
If you had to do that, if you had to do that with the character, you could have just kept it robotic.
Yeah.
And had the robot talking about things, and that would have been funny too, because then that would have been like Commander Data on Star Trek.
Yeah.
Talking about human things.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Surely this premise has been done on Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
Next Generation,
Data.
where Data gets
Data's
like,
always
human
looking
emotions.
for emotions. Data's always trying to get emotions.
Okay, gotcha.
And then at some point he gets emotions, and then it spoiler alert. He doesn't really want them. Like it's like it ends up not being a thing. Like it's not as.
But it doesn't go silly like this.
But his brother Lore is involved, and we're not really talking about Star Trek. But
so he takes all of his emotions.
It does go silly, but it's not this silly.
Yeah, including anger. And so at one point, David calls Max a geek or whatever, and he does not like that. And he reacts basically the same way that Jeff would. And so he says, fine. He's like, if you're so smart, you fly it. And so he takes him up into space, again, 20 miles up or whatever, and just lets the spaceship free fall. And at that point, David has like 2 minutes, and they're saying 19 seconds till impact, whatever. Like it's going down and it's going to be bad. And he's just going to let them basically incinerate or like implode the earth or whatever. And so he, in about 2 minutes flat, has to learn how to fly this thing, which is again really laughable to even think about, but he pulls it off. Those little like two like side car things pop up, and he puts his right hand on the right hand side one and the left hand on the left side one, and ends up steering the ship with that. He's using his foot pedals, whatever. And then for the next 15 minutes, this is not an exaggeration, the only thing that happens in the movie is that they fly around. They go tourist. Like they just basically like they go to Japan.
Fly around.
They go to San Francisco.
And at times,
I guess that's what a 12-year-old would do,
right?
Given a spaceship.
But in the same vein, like this is a point about the time in our morning today where Amanda woke up and was like, she watched probably about half this movie, and she watched the second half of the movie.
Oh, really?
And she saw this part, and she was like, "What are they even doing now?"
Like, what's the
She literally
purpose?
goes, "What are they even doing?" And I go, "I think they're just driving around. Like I don't."
Yep.
It's weird. Like,
that's exactly it.
And it was one of those where they're like, I literally think, and I said this earlier in the episode.
They went
like,
cruising, basically.
Yeah, but I said this earlier in the episode, like where it's like, look what we can do with this technology. We've got CGI. We've got the inside of this thing. Watch us do it now. It'd be like on Avatar, them riding around on the creatures and the green people moving around, like not doing anything for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like no story.
There's absolutely no story in the
they're just
the last 20
showing
minutes.
you the technology. It'd be like bullet time for 15 minutes on the Matrix.
Yeah.
And just like why?
Yeah, everything that we said about the plot up to this point is done. Like there is no more plot except for the very last decision that Max makes.
He wants to go
David
home.
He
wants to go home.
Yeah, there's this scene where they're getting close to Fort Lauderdale. I think that probably the best part of this last 20 minutes is that David is, you keep in mind, a 12-year-old. He has no idea how to, even if he was in Fort Lauderdale, he still wouldn't have any idea how to find his parents' house, especially their new house.
Yeah.
And so he has no idea how to even get home. But like he says, I got a D in geography. He's like, I literally don't even know where Florida is. If he showed me a map of the world, I couldn't point to Florida, which is hard to believe. But and so they're basically, you're led to believe that the reason why they're cruising around the planet is because they're literally just spinning the globe, just trying to find Florida. And so, yeah, probably the most interesting encounter is this one here. I'll play a little bit of a clip where they go to they're in Florida.
Oh my!
And they stop at this gas station.
Big Al's Gator.
Yeah, and
Hey, Glimbo! Oink! Too many Twinkies!
And so like there's big guy, they're making fun of his weight, and he owns like the Bait and Worms tackle shop or whatever in like a very stereotypical deep South Florida kind of gas station.
Florida man.
That's basically the whole point of the scene is that he borrows change, steals his change, basically goes to make a collect call, which I didn't even think you needed money to make a collect call. Anyway, he makes a collect call and calls his mom and dad, and they say, okay, we're going to shoot up some fireworks so that we can help you find our house and get you home.
Shoot up some fireworks.
So there's not much else to say from this point. I'm fast forwarding through like honestly most of that 20-minute section because it's mostly just played off for laughs. Like at one point they fly over like this convertible car of like stereotypical 80s teenagers, and they're like, and Max is like, hey, were those geeks, David? He's like, yep, those were geeks, Max. Like there's literally no purpose for any of this. It's just they basically said, Paul, you've got 20 minutes to be Pee-wee in this movie and just go crazy. There's no script. You just do whatever you want and say whatever you want, and we'll record it. And that is 20 minutes of the movie. I really thought that all of this deep, heavy plot about time travel and being abducted and being displaced from your family for 8 years, and the emotion of like, do I even know this family anymore? And I don't even know where they live, and I'm an alien. There's all these different things that they could have taken it, like feeling like an alien on your own planet because the world has changed without you.
Yes,
like there are so many deep places that this movie could have gone, and this is where they decided to take it. So crazy. There's one funny line that I kind of laughed at where he says, Max actually tells David, he says, I got to get my creatures back to their planets. We gotta cut this road trip short. They're so hungry they could eat a zigzag. And David says, what's a zigzag? And he says, kind of like a hippo, but with feathers. And I kind of chuckled at that reference.
But it's so like blip blorp.
It's so much for kids. So
it is all for kids.
We'll kind of wrap this up pretty quickly. Basically, in a nutshell, what happens is they get all the way home. NASA is there waiting for them with the parents, kind of almost holding them hostage. It's kind of creepy, some of the stuff that happens, but and they're waiting for him so that they can basically take him right back to the facility. They said, hey, if I come out of this ship and go into their custody, I'm never going to see my family again. I'm just going to be locked up for the next 20 years. And so, and then Max says, but if you go back in time with me, you could be vaporized. And he says, I have to take that chance. Let's do it. And so he goes right back into the ship, ditches his family, ditches
Hold on,
NASA.
Let me show you some acting out of
okay, do it.
Out of Mr. What's his face from Head of the Class. Here's some acting.
Okay, do it.
Let me get you some really good acting here. Let me just show you. And this is in the spirit of, I always forget his name, Howard Hesseman.
Okay.
From WKRP in Cincinnati as Dr. Louis Faraday.
Okay.
David, step off the ship. David, step down from the ship. No, David, come away from the ship, David. David stares. David, get off the ship. Scene.
So, what lines am I supposed to say this? We only have one line for you. It's get off the ship.
That's all. And the family.
Just say that over and over
It's
again.
literally the whole crowd and Howard Hesseman. And David looks around and looks back at Max and says basically what you said.
No, this isn't my home. Yeah.
Come here, David. Off the ship. Down the stairs. Up. Come to us. We're safe. We're friends. We've not done anything wrong. We didn't lock you up for 2 days and then tell you we're going to lock you up more. That scene.
Then they go back in time. It's a kind of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory-esque, where they kind of go through this like lightning. It's like not even a real place. Like it's supposed to simulate time travel, I think. Yeah. But it's like Max goes like red, like he's like blood red in his eyeball area or whatever. And they end up,
eyeball area.
They end up making it back to 1978. He's in one piece. Didn't get vaporized.
Yes, but he has knowledge of the future, and he stole the sports almanac.
Yes,
and now his family is millionaires, and Biff works for his father.
Yep, that's true. Oh wait, no, that's a different movie.
Sorry, and Huey Lewis plays this out.
So. At one point, like I almost thought, like he wakes up, he's exactly where he was, at minute 10 into the movie, and for a second I was like, are they going to play this off as it was all a dream? Like, was any of this real?
But
it turns out it is real.
Couldn't have been a dream because of
the Puck Marin.
Yes,
he still has it
available in all KB toy stores.
He jumps in the boat with he's now 1978. Jeff is 8 years old, and he jumps in the boat with his family, and Jeff sees it. The Puck Marin gets wide-eyed, and he freaks out for a second, and he says,
and he smiles.
Keep it quiet.
And then he smiles.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't and he also says don't feed him after midnight.
Yeah. And the last line that's uttered in this movie is, "See you later, Navigator."
No.
Goods and bads, to use a
The
phrase that we used to do.
The bads are Pee-wee. I cannot believe
It's
they
so-
just said you're in
so
hey,
bad.
and you're up.
Yeah.
Go to town. And they did. And he did.
This
And
movie could have been really great. It really could have been.
I would say this, if it didn't make, in 1986, if it didn't make more than $18 million with Pee-wee doing the Pee-wee impression, I don't know that would change. I think it would have probably just made $18 million. Like, I think they could have saved their money and not paid Pee-wee. The goods were the CGI is really good. The set design stuff's really good. Honestly, David Kidd did fine. Like, what do you expect? You know what I'm saying? And then it's got time travel. It's a pretty good movie. It just made Pee-wee. Woof.
The facts of the movie are, I mean, there's a couple things you can't think too hard about, but that's always the case with anything time travel.
Yeah.
I think
it does have some weird age things in it. Like you talked about the Sarah Jessica Parker thing
that's super
with
weird.
David.
Well, I left out at the fact that she's like hanging onto the chain link fence as he's like coming back, like that when he comes back to the family at the very end of the movie.
Right.
Sarah Jessica Parker's there waiting for him. Like the love of my life is back.
How did she get there? Like, why would they take her on that trip? Like, why would she be allowed? Like, if this was a government facility at NASA, why is she coming along?
Yeah, she has a very big interest in David for whatever reason.
Right.
It's super creepy. Given their age difference. But
yes. And then the 8-year-old allowed to just wander around the countryside through the woods. Like, I'm just like,
yeah, there's some dated stuff.
That's weird. Like that. So that kind of stuff. But then, Pee-wee.
For a movie that's called Flight of the Navigator, I really thought that they were going to let him actually navigate like into space or do something other than literally just take a cruise.
Why is he the
around
navigator?
planet.
Because he has the maps downloaded in his brain?
Like he really doesn't even leave the surface of the planet except for 2 times, and both times are just for seconds. Like he's only in space for like a few seconds. It's
Weird.
super weird.
Well, other than the fact that we didn't know it, we didn't get to watch it, but he did go at light speed to 2.2 hours to fail.
He just wasn't awake for it or doesn't remember.
Yeah, but also,
So I was super in on this movie until like the 50-minute mark or whatever.
That's
and
me.
then at that point it just completely unraveled for me. So I couldn't believe it. I did like the ending. I liked that he decided that 1986 is not his real home and he doesn't belong there, and he wanted to go back to 1978.
But now let's talk about time travel. Is that timeline still going? Was it a totally different version of himself? Did he actually go back in time to the timeline? Did that fix the timeline we just saw? A lot of questions to be answered.
Thanks, Doctor Strange. I think that they probably, honestly, they may address that in the remake. I wouldn't be surprised at all, given our current fascination with that kind of stuff.
As long as I get Dr. Faraday, that's all I care about.
So anyway, so that's that. That's Flight of the Navigator.
It is.
I'm glad I watched it just for nostalgia alone, and the 80s references are awesome in this movie. So if you grew up with this movie and you haven't seen it in 20 years, I'd say go ahead and watch it. I'd recommend it. If the last 20 minutes of it sound like garbage to you, just turn it off.
Yeah.
Like 50 minutes in.
They're doing a spin-off show it's a YouTube only, just on YouTube. It's a little short show called Faraday, and it's about the background of Dr. Faraday. And
I would love to see that. He just walks around telling people to get off the ship.
Step this way from the ship. Sorry, guys. I know I'm annoying. I like to beat a dead horse. I've never seen a dead horse that I didn't want to beat.
Yeah.
And I beat that dead horse big time.
I've accused you of that several times.
And Faraday definitely is that dead horse now. All right. Moving along.
What else have you been watching on Disney Plus?
I started watching 30 minutes of Rocketeer this morning.
Yeah.
And then I watched the new Clone Wars, so it's good.
Okay, I've not seen episode 3 yet.
It's good.
I may just watch
It's
it
good.
back to back.
Your thought to us just do 2 episodes at once, smart.
I just think there's not enough to talk about with
Well,
a single episode.
I legitimately think that these episodes would just be 25 minutes long. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? If you really want to do it, like, we just need to talk for 25 minutes about Clone Wars.
And I'd be okay with that, but I think it's more interesting to the audience to maybe listen to a cohesive plot, like
so.
not just half of a plot
Right.
one week and then the other half the next week.
But it's good.
Yeah, I'm
The
looking
new,
forward
the
to
new
watching it.
episode's really good. So
I'm now into season 4 of Clone Wars.
Clean Wars.
Clean Wars,
which is a new reality show about cleaning.
It stars Mr. Clean.
Yes.
But yeah, I have not watched episode 3 yet. But yeah, I actually have gone. I'm still trekking through. So I'm 2 or 3 episodes into season 4. Season 4 already starts off with a huge bang. Like,
Right.
It's really good so far. So I'm already seeing some distance between Ahsoka and Anakin, which is really cool to watch.
Yes.
And Chewbacca is in the final episode of season 3, which I loved watching Chewbacca show up. So
Chewie.
he's actually in captivity on this planet. So it's kind of that episode, the final episode, last couple episodes of season 3 are basically Hunger Games. Like there's, except they're not trying to kill each other. All the captives on this planet are basically being hunted. It's probably more like Predator. So they're being hunted for sport by a bunch of Trogmalians or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Like the big, like almost kind of pig like creatures. Like they're
from Jabba's
Yes.
temple, the green skin guys.
Yeah. So they're being tracked and hunted by these people, and they basically have to find their way out. Honestly, they probably wouldn't have gotten out without Chewie. So he's actually caged. He's a caged animal basically, and they break him out, and he ends up kind of leading an insurgents against their captors, and ends up getting them all free. So
That Chewie is a good
pretty cool.
dude.
Pretty cool to see him in there.
He is.
That's all.
He was voted number 1 Wookiee in his senior class. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And his life day, it's the best party you've ever been to. I mean, they have a whole movie, a spin-off movie, holiday special.
Yeah.
About Chewie's life day.
What's the grandpa's name?
Itchy.
Such a great name.
Itchy. That's how you have to say his name. After you watch that, you'll understand, folks.
Itchy.
That's how you have to say his name. When you watch the the Star Wars holiday special, that's how you have to say Itchy's name.
YouTube? I think it's on YouTube.
Yeah, it's all grainy and horrible. I mean, it's got to be somewhere. It's not on.
They've
Disney
never
Plus,
sold
is
it. They've never sold a copy of it.
No, I mean they could now because Lucas doesn't have as much power as he used to have. Anyway, so he loves Diana Ross. That's for freaking sure.
Yeah.
Gross.
Weird. You want to talk about creepy? That might be my favorite part of this episode.
Not any better than Faraday. My Faraday rant.
Itchy. The voice of Itchy should have been the voice of Max. Itchy. Navigator. You're the navigator. All right. I think that wraps it up for this episode. It's been a crazy episode. What a crazy movie. Next week, we'll be back with more Clone Wars. We will discuss episodes 3 and 4 of the final 7th season of Clone Wars next week for you. So go ahead and watch both of those episodes. If you haven't already seen 3, watch 3 and 4 before next week. And then after that, we might actually go back to The Rocketeer, since you already watched the first 30 minutes.
Let's figure one out here. You said, and I'm going to go get some behind the scenes.
Sure.
I'm not going to give numbers or anything, but our biggest downloaded episode so far has been the High School Musical, the musical series show.
Yeah.
Episode. So we've got to dig in and find what's that next little diamond in the rough. What's the next pearl we can find to rip out of that clam's shell?
If you want to go for the same demographic, we could do that brand new like original movie that's coming out in 2 weeks.
Which is?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a teen drama movie, but it's being written for Disney Plus. Like it's coming straight to Disney Plus.
Well, we may just do that. Now I will say this about we also have Comic-Con coming up. So we also have Comic-Con to think about as well.
Oh yeah. If we mentioned that last week, but it's worth mentioning every week until it happens. But we are at Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City on the 22nd at 2:30 p.m.
And my plan is to
come see us.
Try to. I've already got I called him this week. Brandon Routh, Superman from Batman or from Superman Returns from Batman Returns. Superman Returns. I've tried to get him on the show, and he told me no, right to my face. So he won't be coming on. Just so you know, Phil. Okay. Brandon Routh's not going to be coming on.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I called his agent, and his agent said, "Who are you?"
Stargirl. Stargirl from Disney Plus is a tender and offbeat coming-of-age story based on the critically acclaimed New York Times best-selling young adult novel. That tells you everything you need to know about the mood of this movie. About an unassuming high schooler who finds himself inexplicably drawn to a free-spirited new girl whose unconventional ways change how they see themselves and their world. It sounds really romantic.
We shall see if we do that one.
That comes out next Friday.
Is Evanescence
on the 13th.
Wake Me Up on the soundtrack?
It better be.
Wake me up.
We will not be discussing Stargirl on the next episode, but maybe on the episode after that, we'll invite
so.
Caitlin to come back and talk about Stargirl.
Maybe so. All right.
Thanks for joining us. Write the show at disneyplusreviews@hotmail.com if you want to give us any suggestions about what we should review or what you've been watching. And tune in next week for some more Clone Wars.
Step off the ship.